Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Why We Huddle. After last week's episode, where we took a look at Georgia Tech, home base of Atlanta, I decided why not go a few miles down the road and talk to the Georgia State Panthers. So today, I have the guys from State of Atlanta here to tell us all about the Panthers and what makes them awesome. Hey guys, and welcome to the show. How are we doing tonight?
Doing great, man. Thanks for having us. I love the music. The intro music there was getting a little dance going on.
Well, we know that he can see us dancing, so
Exactly.
and I'm sure we were all jamming out a little bit.
We have an intro theme that plays when we start our episode as well, and I get to see these guys kind of doing their little thing before it actually pops up and everybody gets to see them. They always are quite docile once the show starts.
No need to be docile here. We're here to have a good time, and hopefully, listeners and myself learn a lot. And by the end of it, maybe we'll learn things we didn't know even existed. Right? Like, hey, no, trust me. Some of the things.
Somebody tell him that we're racing a gummy. I'm just...
Oh man.
Sorry, we have a good old time on our podcast. There's a lot less structure, and so I feel like I should just jump in.
Oh no, it's fine. It's fine. Always fun with multi-man sets. I know for those that have been watching Why We Huddle, they've seen us do anything from 1-on-1 to 1-on-3. So it's good to have another one of those. Always good to see what the different dynamics are of the podcasts that make up the College Huddle. So Georgia State, whoever wants to take it, what can you tell us about Georgia State?
That guy over there.
Tim, you want to go? I'll jump in. I'll
Dave, you have notes, right?
Man, I got nothing for this one. This is flying by the seat of my pants. We'll see. We'll see what I know about this place. Georgia State, relatively newer to the FBS ranks. There's been a lot of programs that have followed us after we moved up, but we only started football. What is it, guys? 15 years ago now.
2010.
2010.
14 years ago. Yeah. So we started off the FCS route and barely made it through that before we moved up to FBS into the Sun Belt. And for me, I went to school back. I think Ryan's the only actually one that actually attended school at Georgia State when we had football. You were there your senior year or your last senior year.
No, my student fees paid for it, so I was grandfathered in for season tickets our first year, even though I had already graduated. Now, I had paid a lot of athletic fees though over 7 years, and I'm not a doctor, so.
Well, yeah, I studied decision science, and I'm not a scientist either. So, but anyhow, back when I was in school, I would go and to UGA and to Virginia Tech and see my high school buddies go and watch their teams have football. I didn't have football at Georgia State, so I decided I'd be the biggest Georgia State fan if we ever got football. And 15 years goes by and crap, now here we are. I'm obligated to be a fan. So Georgia State doesn't have a lot of history when it comes to athletics as a whole. We've been Division I for 40 something years, but that was primarily basketball, which the school didn't really pay a lot of attention to. But the past really 10, 12 years, it's been a lot of excitement at Georgia State. The school has transformed from, everybody will talk trash about saying we're a commuter school, but we've got, over 6,000 kids living in or around campus now. We play football after starting football at the Georgia Dome. We play at the former Turner Field, former Olympic Stadium. So we play in a top-notch program, especially one within the Sun Belt. And basketball, brand new basketball arena for a team that's been going to the NCAA tournament more than any other team in the state of Georgia over the past 10 years. Even bringing baseball back to downtown Atlanta on the footprint of the old Atlanta Fulton County Stadium. So it's been an exciting time to be a Georgia State fan. And I mean, onward and upward, the future's bright.
Yeah, and I just want to add, based in Atlanta, which is largely considered the capital of the South, and Georgia in prime recruiting ground for football. And then, That's what I was gonna say. Sorry.
No, you're good.
I lost track mid go there.
Happens to all of us. I mean, definitely go back, watch some of my intros. Definitely lose track halfway through. So people are used to it. Tim, what do you have anything to add about Georgia State? Probably the youngest program that I've brought on the show so far.
I mean, definitely. I was just, while David was saying all of the advancements we made since 2010, it makes me wonder what the hell were we doing before that? Because not a whole lot of anything, it sounds like. But no, I myself became a fan. Obviously, when I transferred schools, I actually went to a school just south of Gainesville, Stetson University in DeLand. Went there for 2 years and then decided I really want to get to working. I want to finish. I get a degree in business. I don't want to pay $25,000 a year to get a degree in business. So let me just transfer. And then I started going to basketball games and I figured out that, holy shit, Georgia State is in the same conference as Stetson. Didn't even recognize it at first until I saw the banner hanging up. So I've been a fan ever since. Been through the scary years of basketball, pre Ron Hunter coming in, and then obviously getting to take off with the football team starting in 2010. And I think all three of us have pretty much had season tickets for all sports since then, at least, right?
I was a holdout for basketball for a long time, but I you guys got me in there.
Well, you live walking distance to the new convocation center, so you better be there.
And I don't ever walk.
That cuts down the drinking time.
Yeah, time's important. So, oh my gosh.
I want to answer a question that Tim brought up, though, actually, is, asking about what we were doing for those years before. We had a president. It was a great president for the growth of Georgia State, Carl Patton, who built out Georgia State, took on a lot of land. I think that we own $6 or $7 billion of downtown real estate in Atlanta, and that's all from what Carl Patton's expansion did. But he had this just thing: he did not want to have football, did not want to be a football school. He envisioned Georgia State to be the NYU of the South. And to his credit, through all of that, one of the last things he did was he did sign off on allowing football before he retired. So we do have him to thank. We would like to have thanked him 20 or 30 years earlier, but we did finally get it to his credit. So
better late than never. And you've made the jump to FBS, something that there are some schools that have been around, those 20, 30 years that you're talking about earlier and still haven't done it. So
yeah, we wonder what could have been if we had started football when like UCF did, right? And so you go and you look at their trajectory, and we look at it and we're like, well, we're in a large city. Like the schools look very similar, and we're like, could that trajectory have been us or all of us? So that's one thing that we always look back on when we didn't start football when maybe we should have.
And we were in a conference with UCF back then.
Yeah, but also that Stetson, UCF, and Georgia State all in the same conference. So it's crazy. But if you look at, just us moving to FBS, we all knew when we started football, FCS it wasn't going to cut it in Atlanta, downtown Atlanta. It's hard enough to get the eyeballs with everything to do here. And obviously Georgia and Georgia Tech taking the vast majority of eyeballs. But we knew that FCS football, it just doesn't fit in a city. So we quickly made that move up to the Sun Belt. I think our athletic director at the time, Cheryl Levick, had some kind of connection to get us into the Sun Belt, but I think she could have gotten us into like Conference USA too, maybe, David, or no?
There's a lot of stories.
There's rumors.
We had an invitation to the Conference USA sitting on the desk, but Cheryl Levick had a professional relationship with Carl Benson, the then commissioner of the Sun Belt, and went with him on that. And you can say, maybe that was the right move, maybe that was the wrong move. From the right move, the Sun Belt by far is a far better football conference than the Conference USA is now. But maybe if we had moved into Conference USA, we wouldn't have taken as many lumps as we did when we transitioned. And maybe we would be in the American or somehow chased like a UCF did and found our way into the Big 12 or something else like that. But who knows what would have happened? We're still a young program. We're still very happy to be where we are at this point, even if it maybe doesn't seem like it's the exact right fit for us.
Yeah, you're not happy.
I hate it.
Don't lie to the people, David.
It's a great G5 conference. We just don't fit. We just don't.
Yeah, bigger aspirations, which is not a bad thing. I mean, you look at USF, UCF, like you talked about, two schools that you also mentioned being tagged with that commuter school tag, even though there are plenty that live near or on campus. You guys just started a little bit later, although not too much later than USF. I mean, decade and a half, maybe two decades, but still in the middle of good recruiting grounds. I mean, USF actually jumped up to a Power 6 conference back when the Big East was still the Big East. Shoot, before UCF got into a big one. So you never know. Big place like Atlanta, especially with expansion realignment, could be fun times ahead where someone moves, someone's got to step in, and why not you guys, right?
Yep. Conference realignment is so wild too. Like I feel like we all have our theories, and then like the thing actually happens, and everybody's like, "The hell is this? What's happening?"
Oh man, so I've got to say, talking a little bit more just specifically about Georgia State. When I looked for your mascot to make the thumbnail, and I saw Pounce.
Yeah.
He definitely is up there now with some of my favorite mascots that I've ever seen because he has that mean face. Most mascots have some sort of happy, child-friendly. Your mascot looks like he's about to eat a child. So
my kid has been afraid of Pounce for quite some time. So.
Oh yeah, and then when he comes out in his like totally like beefcake mode, where he has the extra muscle padding coming in, he definitely looks like a scary guy. But man, we can walk you through. Not now. We can off here. We can walk you through the history of the Pounce mascot. And there was one point we were a bluish purple Chester cheetah from the Cheetos commercial.
Oh yeah,
is what our guy looked like. Definitely not an intimidating look.
Should have been sued, right? I mean, it was too close.
But yeah, no, Pounce is great. We love Pounce. We love the mascot, the logo. We went that was a whole thing when we switched the logo to start football, and we came up with this what we call a push-up panther, which was that mascot head that you see behind me over here, but with this weird body that looked like the dogs from Ghostbusters, the minions of Zool. And we hated that, and somebody was smart enough to just slice out this panther head part of it, and fortunately, for everything that we've given crap to the athletics department about, they decided this was a much better logo, and we're huge fans. And funny enough, during the pandemic, when everybody was wearing masks, they actually made the fang mask of just Pounce's head, their panther head, right there for kids to wear around campus. It was pretty cool. It's pretty neat.
That's awesome. But yeah, for real, one of my favorites. My favorite still, as I've said on the K-State episode, Wildcat Willie, just a regular dude with just a mascot head. There's something so simplistic and wrong about it. I just absolutely love it. But I do love just the fact it's a mascot that looks mad rather than just, hey, we're so cute and cuddly. with that said, what are some rivals? I guess I know you've not been around long to have too many rivalries, but if you have some, who would they be?
I'll let Tim take this one because I've been talking a lot already.
I mean, the main rival by far, leaps and bounds, Trash Down South.
Yep.
They had to follow us up to FBS football. They couldn't stay in FCS with their Six Flags. They felt the need, the urge to match us because they got jealous. So they had to come up to play a big boy football, and they joined the Sun Belt too. Apparently, we vetoed them to join. I don't know. That's a lore.
I mean, that that one brewed for a long time. When we announced football, just the online rivalry just was instantaneous. There was just hate on both sides with just all the shit talk. It was terrible how people treated each other, and it's just carried on. And I think like the first time they played us, they beat us, and they unfurled this Paulson Stadium North banner in our stadium, and we just kind of kept winning after that. So it was never really a big issue for us, but that's just like where the rivalry kind of was and is.
For real quick, for those of us who don't know, who is the Trash Down South, or who are?
It's a small school in Statesboro. They're just right outside of Savannah. It's like they have this creek. It's like a water runoff or whatever, and they like
drainage ditch, right?
Yeah, there's a drainage ditch that they like to put people's heads in or something. I don't know. And they pour it out on your field when they come to your field.
Daniel, you can say the name for everyone else. We won't say
it. I'm going to.
You should say
just assume you're talking about Georgia Southern here.
Oh yeah, I think some people call them.
There you go. I thought this was like a user-friendly, kids-friendly show. I didn't know you could use that
I thought you were cool, man.
Yeah. No, absolutely. That's Trash Down South is by far the biggest rival. You'll get some of their fans that say that we are not rivals at all, that their rival is App State. And I'm like, hey, I know that you guys can't put two sticks together to figure out anything, but you're allowed to have two rivals. And so, but they have a history of going back and forth at beating and losing to Appy State, and we have a history of beating them in football and pretty much every other sport. So I can see why they don't want to consider us a rival. And in football, I think that's pretty much where it is. With the recent additions of Jimmy Madison and Coastal came in a year or two after us, they've kind of a little bit of a rival, but I don't think it really carries that fan weight. The only other rival
David hates Coastal, and he's been trying to make more rivalry for a while.
Well, teal and purple are both absolutely hideously ugly colors. Purple's so yeah, not a fan at all. But I think the only other rival is not even football related. It's basketball, and that's been University of Lafayette or Lafayette University of Louisiana, whatever they call themselves down there. They eat a lot of shrimp and crawfish and stuff. But
that's not problematic.
I'm not sure if it's them or actually their head coach, Billy Napier. Not Billy Napier. Bob, what's his name? Bob Marlin. Yeah, he still sucks.
Yeah,
he still sucks. And that has become a good basketball rivalry. I think that both sides would actually agree on.
Yeah, they have Napier, the Gators, right?
Yeah, you guys got Napier over there.
Yeah. Stole him from Louisiana or Lafayette or whatever.
They were mad.
You saved him from Lafayette.
You did. That's a dark future if you stay there. So I think for our basketball rivalry, I mean, I feel like some of those games probably had the most technical fouls ever. We as fans were told to stop chanting "Bob, you suck" at one point by our own head coach. He got on the PA mic, grabbed it, and said, "No, cut it out right now."
we got scolded by our own head coach for mocking the opposing head coach. Yeah, that's a win right there in my book. We won that game too. So
we won most of those games against Marlin.
We're really good until we moved into the new place.
Yeah. Shh, don't talk about that.
So, what few more things, and then I'll get on to your stories. But being such a young program, do you guys have any traditions for like game day as a program?
We would if the athletics department would keep it going from one year to the next. It seems like every season they try to change up what the game day environment looks like, and it's gotten pretty cool. With the moving into Center Park Stadium, formerly Turner Field. If anybody, I know with the Braves being pretty much the only team in the Southeast, pro baseball team in the Southeast, a lot of people have been there. They had this bricks area right outside the turnstiles that we tailgate on. We considered our version of the Grove and Ole Miss, and come out there and set up the tents. They actually would provide them for us for several years and hang out there. We do a tailgate right there right there at the stadium, which is fantastic and a lot of fun. They'll do the Panther Walk. Players come through. The band plays. We have that going on. But as far as traditions is like in game outside the train horn, which is awesome, by the way. I don't think we've ever really developed that consistent game day experience. What do you say, guys?
We tried to do that first down thing, right, for a couple of years in the Georgia Dome. That kind of
David did that. First meow
didn't work out at all. First meow and the Panther Pounce.
Yeah, I mean, so there's not a lot of tradition. So part of our duty as fans is to create that. So one of the things that we do in our tailgate, at least for the last game of the year, we have a chili cook-off. How many people were in it this year? Maybe last year, because last year I think was bigger than this year, right?
I think 2 years ago we had right at 24, and we were just shy of that this past year, like at 20 or so. It wasn't too bad. Yeah. And it's a free for all. We have everybody make the chili come out, and everybody's able to judge, and we have a good time with that. Ryan's right.
Yep. I know.
Awesome.
I'm right.
And real quick, one other question I've gotten the habit of asking: if you could describe the culture of Georgia State in one word, how would you describe that as a newer program?
Apathetic.
Finicky.
Yikes, guys.
Hesitant. I'm gonna say that. Hesitant.
Cautious.
Yeah, I think if you look at that, I know we say UCF is probably what we want to be. I think USF's probably a better match, even though I want to be UCF. Just because you could see with their attendance was being in that huge stadium. We had the same kind of thing. We're in the Georgia Dome, right? Way too big for an FCS team. And, even the stadium we're in now, I mean, you could see when USF wasn't doing so hot, a couple thousand fans in a gigantic stadium. I mean, that's kind of where we're at. We've had such lopsided up and down seasons. We haven't really established a full slate of winning culture across a span of years. We're on that track. We hope we're on that track this year. And I think if we do that, we can pull the fans in. They won't be finicky or they won't be cautious. We'll have a solid fan base to come see games.
I'm not sure how many people outside the state of Georgia realize this, but Atlanta teams have a tendency to blow leads and fail at things when they're prime for success. And Georgia State is no different from that at all. Whenever we start doing really well, we just find a way to screw it over. We'll have the best season we ever had, and then the next season will come out, we'll win 2 games. Or we'll beat Tennessee and then barely beat an FCS team the next week and then get blown out by Western Michigan up there the following week. Or we'll, like last season, we'll start the season 6-1, best start in Georgia State football history, and not win a single game until the bowl game.
So maybe one word is Atlanta.
We
Atlanta.
We definitely are drinking whatever the water is down here because we succumb to all the same issues that Atlanta teams are known for.
For sure. So I know we've touched on a little bit. I know Tim talked about his background with Georgia State. What about you, David and Ryan? What's your background? What's your story with Georgia State?
I was about as traditional of a Georgia State student as you could have been. I was working as a programmer developer in Sandy Springs, just outside of Atlanta city limits, and taking night classes at Georgia State for the better part of the late 90s and the early 2000s. And like I said, didn't have football. I attended a handful of basketball games. We weren't good back then, and it wasn't until we got football that I got really passionate about Georgia State. And I'll tell you what, you're looking at 3 of the guys that are there first thing in the morning for whether it's basketball, football, or whatever game we're going to. And we try to use the podcast as a launching pad for this fan club of Georgia State to try to make the best game day experience that we can possibly do. And I'm kind of a social guy. I like talking to people. I like drinking a lot, and we like to hang out. That's so we got me into it.
Yeah, and I'm originally from Athens. I grew up in Athens, watching Georgia Bulldogs.
I'm sorry.
And We're good. Through the years that I was a fan of Georgia, y'all beat us a lot, so that was troubling. But as soon as Georgia State announced they were having a football program, I was excited, and my number 1 team was replaced because I went to Georgia State, so I was like, finally, I went to a school that has football, and I get to be a football fan of that school. So I started going and tailgating, just like I learned to do for Bulldogs games, and ended up hooking up with these guys, and just kind of shot off from there. But
yeah, none of us went to school together. None of us were in school at the same
Nope.
time. We never knew each other outside of tailgates. So
definitely a cool way to meet each other, and also to start creating, like you talked about, the culture of Georgia State. So I've got a question. Well, I've got a few, but the first one being, what's the biggest win in Georgia State history, and why is it Tennessee?
because we're talking to a Gator fan.
Well, that's true.
I mean, that's what I would call our biggest win. That's probably what a lot of people in the program would call our biggest win, given we still have the poster of it up outside of our stadium, which even though I think it's our biggest win, I do not think that's a great look. But I mean, that really got us headlines, and then Tennessee kind of sucked before that, or they weren't doing too hot. But they ended up finishing that season really strong, and so it turned out that was a pretty good win over a pretty good team. So I mean, that's probably the biggest win in our history.
Yeah, I would say the only other win that's probably notable outside of that would be our comeback win in the NCAA basketball tournament against Baylor. And I don't remember the year, but 2012, 13, 16, somewhere in there. We're down by 12, 14 points with like less than 3 to go, make the comeback. RJ Hunter shoots the 3. You got Coach Hunter falling off his stool with his broken foot that he broke in the Sunbelt basketball tournament final. When we won, he was jumping around during the celebration. So like for me, I went to both events. They both have different like specialty to them. I personally love college basketball more up until a certain point in time. So for me, the basketball is probably the biggest moment. Football's super close second, though, for me. Hugest win in program history, P5. I mean, P5 football game. We play these games, right? The guaranteed, the money games. You don't think you're going to win, but hey, every week you have a shot. It doesn't matter. So we came out on top, and that had one of my favorite plays of Georgia State where – who was it? Quarterback.
Ellington
had his little spin juke turbo to score the touchdown and just seal the deal.
It was beautiful.
That was the most beautiful like quarterback sneak run ever. Period.
Yeah, yeah. I agree with Tim and Ryan saying. I think that also we come from a unique perspective where all three of us were at the very first ever Georgia State football game against Shorter College. We win 41-7 inside of 33,000 people inside the Georgia Dome, down the street from where the Braves were playing playoff baseball, and we still drew that kind of crowd. That was an electric environment. Little did we know what the attendance would be like going forward after that, but that was awesome. And then, not to give them any credit at all, but that first time, the second time we played Trash Down South, and the first time we played them down there in Statesboro, we beat them 34-7, handing them the largest loss in home. I think it's still their largest loss at home.
Yep.
And this is their team that beat us 60-something to 30 or whatever it was the year before, and a team that fan base that told us that we didn't deserve to share the same field with them, that we would never beat them in 40 years, and to be able to do that to them down there and not really look back since then. I think those are two special games. But yeah.
The 7 was garbage. I mean, it was like
that was a gift. That was a
totally
gift.
throwaway, like not real. Like we just killed them. And I will say that it was the first time we became bowl eligible as well.
It also to become bowl eligible, another thing.
So that was like
that game.
it was that much sweeter,
Yeah. But no, I think that both Ryan and Tim are correct. That the Tennessee win in Knoxville and then the basketball game against Baylor in the tournament were the two biggest games in Georgia State history, at least in the most past 20 years.
I like the home opener, though. That's a solid one, too.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, I know we all went into that day thinking, how many people are going to show up? I mean, come on, don't lie to me. Like, we were there tailgating at first, so super early. There wasn't a whole lot of people there. And then all of a sudden, like, this flood of cars and people came. And then it was
because it was like a Thursday or Friday night. It wasn't even a Saturday. It was like I want to say it was a Thursday night. Yeah. Because the Georgia Dome was being used for the Chick-fil-A game or whatever else was going on that Saturday. Right. So we had to get it on that Thursday night. And yeah, I mean, I was so naive back then. I actually worked that day and then went down to the game. Now we're playing on a weekday. That day is off, and the next day is too.
That's right.
Awesome. Now, I do have to ask because when I spoke to the guys from Boise State, they talked about after, they had their big wins in the mid 2000s that they started to see almost a uptick in recruiting or more interest in the school because of the football success. Did maybe more players, or do you know if more players, after you had that win against Tennessee or whatnot, start to take notice of Georgia State, especially since you're in such a hot recruiting bed like Atlanta?
I used to cover recruiting, and I honestly couldn't tell you like if there was an uptick then or not. But typically on our podcast, we steer clear of the recruiting news unless it's like bombshell stuff, because like I think over time, if your average is good recruiting, then you're going to have good teams. But typically, to analyze each and every player in each and every class, you don't know. You have no idea how these guys are going to turn out. And so if you start saying, oh, this guy's going to be a superstar, and then he's not, it's not even worth it. So we just steer clear of it.
I generally steer clear of recruiting on my podcast as well. Heck, there's a whole Gator podcast strictly for recruiting or mostly for it. So I'm like, that's their niche. I'm not touching it because, like you said, you never know how it's going to turn out. I've seen great classes end up with not so great teams, and then plenty of middle of the pack classes where ends up being, helping out with SEC or national title teams. Yeah. And I've also seen, I think, at least twice at UF. Again, different stories, different schools, but at least twice I know if we had like the top quarterback recruit and then the secondary quarterback we brought in at the same time ended up being a Heisman finalist, and the top quarterback recruit ended up transferring out. So, like you said, you never know what's going to end up being that there. But I didn't know if you knew or not if those kind of wins got at least you on the map, at least in more people's eyes, or not. So
I think we're passionate about one part of recruiting. Let me throw a hypothetical situation at you, Daniel. So you're in Florida. If your head coach decided not to focus on the state of Florida athletes, focused on other states, do you think
the Carolinas?
Do you think you're maybe the Carolinas? Do you think or Louisiana? Just Louisiana was his focus. Do you think your fan base and you would be like, what's wrong with this state? There's a lot of quality players here.
I can tell you, we've had coaches that have done that in the last decade, and they're not here anymore.
Hey,
that's all I'll say about that.
Say, was it Will Muschamp in Georgia? I mean,
no, there's been kind of a few. Now, even I'll say Napier. I try not to talk too much current Florida on this particular show, but Napier has done well with his recruiting outside of the state of Florida, and he's done some decent things inside the state. But if you look at like the top 20, 25 players from Florida, he's getting like one or two where there were guys that used to get like 7 or 8. So that's one thing. If we could say, hey, if you could improve on, it's getting some of the top Florida guys. So I feel you if that's what you're doing. Now, with that said, again, I realize it's different situations. You guys are like, oh, here's this guy, top 15 classes talking about get more Florida. But yeah.
No, I think that what Tim was getting at is, after that big win at Tennessee, the coach we had, Coach Sean Elliott, Sean came from South Carolina, and he didn't make any bones about it. Like we talked to him in public environments, and he was on public record as saying that he was never going to sell anybody on Georgia State. He only wanted kids that wanted to be here. And I'm like, that's part of being a head coach, and part of recruiting is you're convincing the best players out there you can get to come play for us. And he didn't want to put in that type of effort. So if we had a lot more of attention back then after that win, I don't know if it really made that big of a difference. But I will tell you, that our new head coach, Coach Del McGee, who came from Georgia, he has, like Ryan said, we don't really focus on a lot of recruiting, and we don't, but even we are like, what the hell is going on down there? We have got so many guys on social media talking about being here, more guys coming in here, and just getting that, let's not joke about it. The state of Georgia is run by UGA, and to have somebody with the deep connections that Del McGee has with Athens and the University of Georgia and everything he's built up, it's been great. It's been really exciting.
Like paying off. We'll see, but
we're very excited to see what these transfers that he gets come in and these recruits that he has coming in. It's an exciting time in that area, even if we don't couldn't tell you names or positions or rankings or stats or anything like that at all.
But we said we're going to do it, right, David? We're going to have a podcast episode all about recruiting.
It will bring in somebody that knows what they're talking about. Yeah,
for sure. Play. Yes.
Yeah, we got a guy for that.
We do.
Just not any of you, right?
No, we tried to get Ryan back into it. He kind of declined. I don't know why.
Me?
Yeah.
I also thought it was really weird, like talking to teenagers about stuff.
Also, that
I was just like DMing.
Oh, now even issue talking to teenagers,
and I'm like, this isn't okay. I should stop doing this. I don't care if I write an article about it or not. Like it's.
Our little boy's growing up. So proud.
I'll just drink with my buddies instead.
There you go. So, I guess real quick, what are some hopes that you guys have for the future for Georgia State? Whether it's just something in your personal lives involving, or maybe, hey, here's what I want to see Georgia State be in the next 10 years.
2025 national champs.
Called by Reddit.
That's it's been called. It was foreseen on Reddit many years ago, and all of the stars are coming into alignment, and I believe it's going to happen.
With our one loss being to App State, Ryan.
One loss to App State, and that's it.
Did we ever figure out if it was
all the rest of y'all are going to have 2 losses against not quality opponents? So
is it the 2024 season 2025 national championship or the 2025 season 2020?
2025 national champion. I'm not sure how that works out, but for those that have no idea,
I'll let you know in January.
If we're in it, it's
back to back. It's me back to back. For those that have no clue what we're talking about, which I don't know why you would, there was a kid on Reddit like 10 years ago that said, like, I think this is coming off our 0-12 inaugural season in the FBS. And he just went on the Reddit's college football page and he just pleaded with people to, like, can you make Georgia State your second team? Like, you support wherever you went to school or whoever you grew up with supporting. But our team just needs fans. Can you play? And everyone took pity on the guy, and the Reddit college football subreddit crowned Georgia State, prophesized the 2025 national champions. Well, that next thing you know, the college football playoff expands to include the top G5 champion in it, and it's going to be played in Atlanta, down the street from campus here in 2025. So
really,
this is foretold.
It was all destiny. Bring Del McGee in.
I don't know how much credit Reddit. Yeah, Del McGee. I don't know how much credit Reddit gets for prophesizing things, but if this had been on Simpsons, we would know it was going to happen. So
exactly,
that's right.
No, so yes, outside of the 2025 national championship, I think that big things for Georgia State is contend for and win a conference championship. We've not made it there yet. That's be a huge one for us. We've never won a conference championship, never been in contention for a conference championship, and and then now with that college football spot being available, being able to be that team that represents the G5, I think that's those are big things there for the program, for football at least. For basketball, let's make it to Sweet 16.
Yeah,
I'll say fine.
Beach volleyball is to finally win the whole goddamn thing.
Oh yeah,
we're a really good beach volleyball program. Really good beach volleyball.
We're not kidding.
We are anything. We have some great sand courts in the middle of downtown Atlanta, and our ladies kick ass. That's the closest we've been to winning a national championship.
That's true.
There you go. Well, with that said, let's get into talking about State of Atlanta, your podcast. What can you guys tell me about it? I guess let's start off with the name State of Atlanta?
I am so glad you asked that question, Daniel. I'm so glad you are the person to ask that question, Daniel, because this podcast was named by none other than Steve Spurrier. They were interviewing him a long time ago, back when he was still coaching, probably at South Carolina. And Ryan hates this story, but they were talking to Spurrier about recruiting, and he was talking about how fertile of grounds Georgia was. And he says it's like you have two states. It's like you got the state of Georgia and you have the state of Atlanta, and that's something that the Georgia State fans kind of picked up on, state of Atlanta. And I immediately bought the domain name, and I let it sit there for probably 6 or 7 years. And then when the very first episode of State of Atlanta was Ryan and I sitting down here in this basement discussing what we were going to call the podcast. And I kind of knew it was going to be State of Atlanta, but I was open to other suggestions, and nothing was better than that. So State of Atlanta is where the name came from, thanks to Steve Spurrier. And it's great because Coach Del McGee, I don't think he knows that story, but he's been talking about recruiting Georgia and how there is a State of Atlanta to recruit. And I'm trying to record every one of those bits for a little video montage of him saying our name over and over again.
There you go. That's awesome. So yeah, for those of us that haven't seen too much of your stuff, or someone who wants to check you out, even if they are from, that school down south or over in the Louisiana area, or hey, maybe in the Carolinas, what about you guys should they be checking out?
I think the key to our podcast is that we decided that there are people who are already doing sports talk, and like we said, we don't really cover the recruiting details. We don't really cover the X's and O's and like get into any of the analytics and all that stuff. Sometimes we might like lightly glaze over it. Sometimes we might make up stuff. I mean, that ends up happening. But we figure that market is cornered of the people who do the analysis, and so we'd just be like three guys drinking at a bar talking about sports that we enjoy, which is why we make up stuff sometimes. I mean, that is so.
Yeah, we're definitely a more casual, easy listening podcast. Like we won't break down a play in a football game at all. I mean, unless it's losing the game because
that Auburn pass,
Auburn catch no catch. We did break that down.
We can do the easy ones.
But yeah, we're just casual. So like, if you just want to have a fun listen, sometimes we ramble on. Sometimes we'll go off on a tangent and start talking about barbecue while we're supposed to be talking about Georgia State sports. That's
happens
our podcast.
More often.
yeah. Well, it's off season, so
Yeah,
it's three color commentators talking about Georgia State. Is what it is.
Yeah, that's
everyone's falling asleep at calling the game. We're just hanging out.
There you go. So since you brought up barbecue, favorite style of barbecue, whoever wants to go first.
David.
Well, I'm from Memphis.
You're like the
Memphis style barbecue is top where it's at. I like a good dry rib from Memphis style. That's my personal favorite. I did some ribs over the weekend, but I'm not a big fan of the super vinegary base. I'm not a big fan of the mustard stuff. And as good as brisket is, brisket's not barbecue. So sorry, Texas, to let you know, but you guys are just really good at making steak. So
Denver is very mad at you right now.
Pulled pork.
Give me some Memphis ribs, Memphis style ribs, and some pork sandwiches. Hold the coleslaw for me, though. I try to avoid all things green unless it's St. Patty's Day. So
I think I'm ended up on the Texas bandwagon, and here's why. When I got a smoker,
his girlfriend's sitting right next to him.
Yeah, because she's sitting here, and I want to enjoy my evening.
You've not
no. I tried like different kind of rubs and sauces and all kinds of stuff, but what it really came down to is salt, pepper, and maybe a little bit of garlic powder as a dry rub, and that's gonna be your best dry rub. You might want to have a different flavor every now and again, but that's your go-to. That's a good dry rub. So and that's pretty much Texas style. So.
And Tim's just ready there to eat it all.
I mean, yeah, Tim just eats that. Yeah, he brings the chicken minis, and they're delicious too. I'm not gonna take anything away. I eat the shit out of those.
I prefer just like, I guess, Memphis barbecue, Southern sweet barbecue. I don't like putting sauce on the barbecue though. First, I like to see just like the pit master, how they get their meat really good, smoky, all that, and then I'll add some sauce if it needs it. Sometimes though, like you just luck out. You don't need sauce. Just the
Proper
pork is just
barbecue
so
doesn't
good.
need sauce. Yeah.
Right. So
Yeah, but we live in Atlanta, which doesn't have, you know, a style of barbecue.
Right.
You know, there's not really a Georgia style or an Atlanta style, but we do have lots of really good barbecue restaurants that have all kinds of. I mean, you'll go into one barbecue place that has multiple styles there, and they do them all well. So, I mean, we're in pretty good shape here in Atlanta.
Yeah, I do enjoy Twin Smokers barbecue if it's still there. That's kind of over near the Georgia Dome.
I don't know that one.
Yeah, it's kind of near College Football Hall of Fame. Actually, I think it's on the same strip as like College Football Hall of Fame. Then there's the Chick-fil-A that's right there. Then I think it's right next to it.
I know exactly.
On Marietta Street. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Granted, the only times I'm in Atlanta are probably staying those kind of touristy football areas. So I need to explore and find some good stuff next time I'm in. What would you recommend?
I mean, gotta toss it out to being Georgia State fans. You gotta toss it out Daddy D's. It may not be the best barbecue, but it's some damn
I went
good
there
barbecue.
recently. It's gone downhill.
Really?
And then
yeah,
and then Woods Chapel right there in Summerhill, down the street from the stadium. They do whole hog barbecue. Yeah, it's a little bit pricier.
I think the two you hear people talk about the most are Heirloom Barbecue and Fox Brothers, which I think Fox Brothers is. I know, but that's what you hear people talk about the most. I agree.
Yeah,
Fox Brothers is not the best.
Fox Brothers is like Sweetwater beer. It's the one you hear about, but it's not the best one.
Yeah.
So, Sweet
Heirloom, I think, is like the one that you hear about that is the best one too.
Yeah, Sweet Auburn's good,
there, right?
Sweet Auburn's pretty good too. I like Grand Champion Barbecue. I don't know if you've been to that one, and then Community Q also over in the Decatur-ish area. I don't know if that's Decatur, but that's also solid barbecue. Yeah. We could go on for hours naming barbecue joints in Georgia.
That's right. They're all good. It's funny too, because when I tell people, I'm like, oh yeah, that barbecue place is not that good, and they're like, oh, it's great, and I'm like, well, I mean, look, it's barbecue, so it's delicious. I'm not saying it's not really good. I'm just saying, as far as barbecue places go, it's not as good as the rest of them.
That is one thing I remember when I came to Georgia State, having barbecue a lot, and then going back home down to South Florida, and there really is just Sonny's barbecue, and that's about it.
Sonny's is actually not bad.
It's actually not
barbecue. It is
for what it is. It's not bad.
I'm only gonna get a pulled pork sandwich there, and I'm gonna drown them thing in sauce. But Sonny's is for fast food barbecue. Sonny's is not bad, and that's coming from somebody that won't go to these places here in Atlanta. I don't go to a lot of the restaurants here. If I'm gonna do barbecue, I'll just do it myself or go over to Ryan's house.
Exactly. I know it's not that way anymore in South Florida. I know barbecue's picked up a huge amount since 1998, around that time period. But I do remember going back home and be like, where's barbecue? There isn't barbecue anywhere around here. Well, there's Sonny's. Okay, well, that works. And I do remember having Sonny's growing up in South Florida because that was it.
Yep. Yeah, one of UF's former players who's very vocal about things on Twitter, or X, whatever they're calling it now. He's actually now a pit master for Sonny's, so get to see all sorts of Sonny's all the time on the X feed. So I will throw that out there as we're shouting out Sonny's, whether for good or for bad. But
hey, look, it's like I said, it's still a barbecue joint. So no matter how bad it is, it's still better than a lot of other food.
And if Sonny's wants to sponsor our tailgates, I will tell everybody it's the best barbecue in Georgia. So
I'll just cook my own and put your logo on it. It'll be fine.
There you go. Save the time and money, but get the sponsorship. All righty. As we wind up here, do you guys have any last things you'd like to tell the audience?
Well, I don't think so for me. We're all looking at each other.
I like
other than F the trash down south, I don't really have anything else to share.
Don't make it about
Panthers.
We would love to have more fans listen to the podcast. Check us out, right?
Oh yeah.
And speaking of that, where can they find the podcast or find you guys or all of the above?
Patreon.com/State of Atlanta.
Yes, if you want to become a member, absolutely.
No,
Patreon is there. But yeah, stateofatlanta.com. We're on all the podcasting things. We're on YouTube. But yeah, we're just look up State of Atlanta. All the social medias. I think other than what is it, Instagram, we're State of ATL because apparently our name was too long for Instagram. But
when do we do our podcast, David?
Tuesday nights at 9 and release Wednesday mornings. Unless you're a Patreon member, you can't watch it live.
Do you have interaction on your live shows?
It depends. During the football season, basketball season, we'll get some interaction. We did take this past season. We took our live streams to make it a benefit of our Patreon members, so we don't get the casual fan as much as we used to. But we'll get some questions and some shout outs and mostly some clarifications about what we got wrong. We get a lot of those. Shout out to John, Danny.
There you go.
Interns.
Oh man. Well, with that said, thank you guys for coming on. I've had a good time. I feel that I've learned a lot. Hopefully you guys have had a good time as well.
Yep.
Absolutely, man. This is a great time. I really appreciate you having us on.
Absolutely. Thank you.
I'm glad I can have you guys on, and maybe, the Reddit prophecy will be fulfilled, and maybe through this, a lot of people will become secondary Georgia State fans. And who knows, 12-team playoff, it could happen. But with that said, for everyone listening, thank you for joining us and discovering why we huddle.